Hello and welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for sharing your time. This is where I'm sharing energy psychology, energy medicine, and high vibrational living tips for you to rebalance your health so that you have emotional and physical well-being. And in today's video, I want to share two things. The first thing is a bit of psychology behind the inner critic. So what is your inner critic? What purpose does it serve? And why do we have one? Because believe you me, we all do. And then the second thing is I want to take us on to some energy psychology, a tapping sequence to help you shift your inner critic so that you befriend your inner critic. And instead of listening to the criticism and the judging, your critic instead becomes your inner cheerleader. So let's start on the first of those two things. So I've written some notes here because there are some key things that I want to share about the inner critic. And the first thing is that we have this massive tension between our central nervous system, our human body, which prefers the comfort zone. It likes to stay with the status quo. What it knows is what it loves. It doesn't like to move on, or it doesn't like to embrace change. And then the essence of ourself, our soulful essence, our presence, the thing that some people might see as the spiritual part, some people see as our inner power and our personality, that essence of who we are, the thing that leaves when our physical body dies, that essence is designed for growth and stretch and challenge and change. So we've always got that tension between our spirit, our soulful presence that wants to change, and our body, our central nervous system that likes comfort zone. So that's the first bit of tension. And then the inner critic is coming from our learned beliefs. So the things that aren't necessarily true and probably are not true, but the things we picked up in childhood between the ages of 0 and 7 when we were growing and developing and forming our kind of beliefs about ourselves, our social presence, who we are in the outside world. So when we're in the ages of 0 to 7, we're not using our thinking brain, our rational brain, our brain waves are slower. We're actually in a really relaxed state of theta and delta brain waves, which means that we're using our rear brain. We're just being, we're existing in the moment. We're in a happy, positive, relaxed space. That brings with it some benefits. So amazing learning, we just soak things up like a sponge, but also some disbenefits. So when we hear our parents, our older siblings, any peer groups that have an influence over us, we believe what they say without any filter. So if you can imagine you're a young kid, you really want something in the supermarket, you're with your parents or your mum or your dad or a caregiver, and they're a bit frazzled, they're worried about paying the bills, they want to get in and out of the supermarket really quickly, they're frustrated, they're maybe overheating, whatever it is, they've got an emotional subtext. In an adult life, in an adult world, in the 21st century, there are always things that we're stressing about and we're worrying about. So when you as a little kid reach out to grab something that you really want, and your parent either slaps you physically or mentally and says, "You're not having that right now, you don't deserve it, you're a bad boy, a bad girl." Those types of things, and I am hopeful now that more parents are aware of this, but when I was growing up, many decades ago now, it was seen as you had to, what's that expression about sparing the rod, you spoil the child. So your child was there to be told off, to be told they weren't worthy, they weren't good enough, they weren't being a good girl or boy, unless they were doing exactly what the adult had asked them to do. So keep quiet, shut up, don't ask for things because you don't deserve it. And if you've had a parent who shared that, or even an older sibling, as I said, it could be anyone who is older than you in your peer group who has an influence during that young age, you will have actually sucked that in and believed it as a truth. And that's all very well and good if you know that you've got these things in your head that are circulating saying you're not worthy, you're not lovable, you're not enough, you're not clever enough, you're not pretty enough, you can't do this. If you've got those things in your head and you're conscious of them, and then your rational mind comes in with later experiences reminding you of what you've achieved, reminding you that you're a great person, you do lots of amazing things for yourself and for others, then you will sort of refresh that truth, that opinion, and have a much more balanced opinion. You won't accept it as the truth. We can't do that as a kid. And what happens is our clever minds lock away those beliefs because it likes to simplify and classify. So in your subconscious, you hold that belief. And when something else comes up again, where someone else is ranting and raving and saying, "Oh, this is all your fault," you accept the blame because your subconscious is saying, "I remember that. Yes, that's the truth. You're not worthy." So you accept the blame, you become the doormat, you become the victim, and hey ho, the inner critic starts to fire up. Yes, accept that blame because it is your fault, because you're useless. Yes, it's your fault that this has happened, that bad things keep happening to you, because your inner critic is stored in your subconscious. It's effectively the mirror of your inner child. So when your inner child is developing in those young years of 0 to 7, every time a significant emotional event happens, you have what's called a wave collapse in quantum physics. And what was a potential truth or belief is then collapsed into something real and tangible. So the potential is out there: I'm good, I'm bad. Your parent tells you you're bad in the moment. That's it, wave collapse. You have a limiting belief that your inner critic and your subconscious hold until you're ready to reprogram. And it holds it there until you are conscious of that inner belief, till you're conscious that you need to change and you're ready to do the work. Unfortunately, your subconscious is like an elephant compared to the ant of your conscious, rational brain. So the elephant drives 95% of your behavior. The ant drives only 5%. So your subconscious is basically driving your life. And because your subconscious holds your inner critic, your inner child, all those moments where you've had a wave collapse and those things that were not true have now become real truths for you, that is how you're living your life. You're living your life according to the beliefs of your childhood self. Thinking, I'm not worthy, I don't deserve this, I'm not good enough, I'm not lovable, and all that list. You know it as well as I do. And unfortunately, the first rule of growth, of human growth and expansion, is that we're only as good, as the opinion we hold of ourselves. I'll say that again, I hope this sinks in. We're only as good as the opinion we hold of ourselves. So if you're holding this subconscious opinion of I'm not worthy, and that huge long list, then you will never be more than I'm not worthy, because what you believe is how you think, how you feel, and how you act. That elephant, that subconscious elephant that you're not aware of, but it's driving you, is there, and it's not in a good place. We can have these wonderful frontal cortex, rational thoughts, good intentions to get better, to grow. But when that 5% intention is combating and going against that elephant, that 95% of hidden beliefs, hidden limiting beliefs, you can see why it's hard to overcome. And then the other point that I want to mention is that you only are loved by others as much as you love yourself. So not only can you not grow beyond your own opinion, but any relationships you have will also be limited by the amount you love yourself. So if you have that elephant saying, I'm not lovable, I'm not worthy, your relationships will be continually damaged. So your inner critic is that in that big elephant space, and it's coming from the ages of 0 to 7 when you had no filter. And then hey ho, there's one more final thing that trumps all of this, and that's your environment. So if you've lived with your inner critic, you've lived with your subconscious, your elephant, in a negative space, and you haven't worked through any of these big emotional moments. They might not even have been big, they could have just been a telling off in a supermarket, but those moments that were pivotal to you as a child, then you will likely have friends who might be toxic. You might hang around with a tribe, a group of people who aren't necessarily showing good behavior. They might be might be a codependent relationship. You're the doormat to their power and their controlling over controlling freaky nature. So what I'm saying is the way you think, feel and behave is going back to the ages of 0 to 7 when you picked up some limiting beliefs, that elephant. And you'll likely create a toxic environment for yourself. Friends who don't support you, who don't boost you, who don't tell you that you are amazing and that you've got this. So it'll be people who are putting you down, and places that put you down and keep you down. So environment trumps everything. So you've already got a negative elephant that you're riding in your life, and then you're surrounded with negative people, toxic relationships, toxic careers, then unfortunately, it's on a bit of a downward spiral. So your inner critic has got so much fuel for that fire to keep it revved up, to keep it putting you down. So you've got your inner head putting you down. You've got a toxic environment. You've got toxic people around you, and you're stuck in a place of childhood where your inner child has been damaged in some way, emotionally damaged and stuck. And you're carrying that heavy weight inside you. Don't despair, but if that sounds like you, if you can resonate now, if you can think back to your childhood, look around you at your environment, look at your friends, are they supportive or are they negative? And we probably have a mix, but if you're carrying a really heavy duty inner critic, if you've got this really negative elephant that's been driving your life, the odds are you've got a toxic environment. So that's a little bit of the psychology about, we've all got an inner critic. Some people have learnt to turn the volume down. Some people's inner critic is a little pipsqueak. Some people's inner critic is a giant who's literally got a loud hailer bellowing in your ear. It's so difficult to move out of that. So I have 3 tips from a psychological perspective. One is you need to empty yourself of all that negative thinking, those negative limiting beliefs, the negative voice, the inner critic, the damaged inner child. Take away the negative inside of you that's creating the world of negativity around you. 2, you need to think more mindfully, be more considered about what you're putting in. So what you're putting into your body and what you're putting into the garden of your mind. That is your space. Be careful about what you put in there. So take the bad out, don't put any more bad in. And that's bad people, bad places, careers, all the choices that we make as an adult. Be mindful about things that support you. And then the 3rd thing is, put good stuff in there. Surround yourself with people who love, support, cherish, and lift you. Put good things into your body, put amazing, joyful things into your mind. So it is a bit like the garden. Clear the weeds, keep the weeds at bay, plant beautiful flowers. So that's the psychology. And just to reflect on that, because we've obviously now got some wonderful energy tools. And if you haven't seen the rest of my series on self-love, then I've already got and shared some amazing energy medicine tools and some energy psychology to expand your heart space, to bring self-love, compassion and kindness for yourself. So go back and look at those. And the next thing I'm going to do is energy psychology, a tapping sequence to really quiet befriend, and show some love to your inner critic so those limiting beliefs no longer hold you back. They no longer form the bars of that cell that imprisons you. So keep watching, and thanks so much for listening.